Eunoia, A Blueprint for a Planet in Harmony, 2nd edition, expanded vision. Ecovillages solving global issues. 1. Climate migration and stateless people. Why it matters. Climate change, conflict, and failing economies are displacing millions. These individuals often lose all legal protections, become stateless, and are vulnerable to trafficking, poverty, and violence. What Eunoia can do. Create eco-village designed specifically for migrants, dignified, safe, and culturally inclusive. Build a right to belong pathway where displaced persons can become stewards and members of new communities. Partner with the UNHCR to create legal residency systems within Eunoia lands. 2. Mental health epidemic. Why it matters. Anxiety, depression, addiction, and trauma are epidemic across all demographics, especially among youth, Indigenous communities, veterans, and isolated elders. What Eunoia can do. Build holistic healing ecovillages focused on nature therapy, traditional medicine, and emotional support. Incorporate trauma-informed training into all educational and community programs. Offer open-source, self-guided healing resources, including journaling, breathwork, spiritual reflection, and reconnection with nature. Digital displacement and AI disruption. Why it matters. Millions will lose jobs, identity, and meaning due to automation and AI, while the global south is often left behind in tech access. What Eunoia can do. Offer digital sanctuaries and retraining ecovillages for people displaced by tech, focused on regenerative roles, community building, land work, and ethical tech use. Train youth in AI for good applications. Example, land restoration, community planning. Build low-tech living systems alongside high-tech stewardship, honoring both. 4. Water sovereignty and drought. Why it matters. Drought, privatization, and contamination are destroying ecosystems and human health. Water is becoming a commodity and conflict is rising. What Eunoia can do. Create waterkeeper eco-villages with systems for rainwater harvesting, watershed healing, greywater use, and community education. Establish legal protections for water within the Eunoia Charter. Water as a living right, not a commodity. Partner with local Indigenous nations who have water protection knowledge and amplify their leadership. 5. Corruption and global wealth hoarding. Why it matters. A few people control most of the planet's wealth, influence, and policy decisions, creating a bottleneck on solutions. What Eunoia can do. Maintain 100% transparency in all spending, decision-making, and impact metrics. Create a non-monetary value system where time, care, wisdom, and earthwork are currencies. Offer a voluntary wealth redirection platform where aligned donors support mission-aligned actions without control. 6. Religious division and extremism. Why it matters. Religious conflict has fueled war, hate, and fear for millennia, and today, secular versus spiritual divides are deepening. What Eunoia can do. Create sacred sites of interfaith unity within ecovillages, spaces where all paths to the divine are honored. Offer interspiritual education, teaching compassion, mysticism, and mutual understanding. Invite peace builders from various faiths to co-create shared ethical teachings rooted in love, stewardship, and non-violence. 7. Biodiversity collapse at micro levels. Why it matters. It's not just lions and whales going extinct. It's soil bacteria, insects, fungi, and seed lines. things invisible but essential. What Eunoia can do. Include micro-rewilding missions, moss, lichen, fungi, insects, worms. Build seed and spore libraries in each region. Encourage tiny species sanctuaries, wild strips of land set aside for insects, ground life, and decay. Guardianship, not ownership. Legal protections, peacekeeper partnerships, and emergency protocols for Eunoia. Eunoia is not simply a dream, it is a living system. And like any living system, it must protect its heart. In a world still governed by outdated laws of possession, extraction, and force, we must clearly and courageously define how Eunoia and all who dwell within it will remain protected, rooted, and sovereign in purpose. This chapter outlines the legal structures, defense partnerships, and emergency protocols that ensure Eunoia communities cannot be bought, corrupted, or erased. Land stewardship versus ownership. Eunoia does not claim ownership of land. The earth cannot be owned. Instead, we recognize guardianship, a sacred living agreement between the land and those who care for it. Key principles. All Eunoia lands are held in perpetual stewardship. No land may be sold, mortgaged, privatized, or inherited as commodity. Ecovillages are protected as commons, places that serve life, not profit. To achieve this legally, land may be protected through international land trusts, non-transferable easements, constitutional clauses in host nations, indigenous title partnerships where applicable. These protections are codified in Eunoia's bylaws and reinforced through global transparency. Defense against external threats. Though non-violent in spirit, Eunoia must prepare to respond to government seizure or hostile regulation, private investor encroachment, collapse of national systems, armed conflict in fragile regions. In such cases, Eunoia will activate international legal support, including appeals to UN environmental and indigenous rights councils. Request non-violent peacekeeping assistance through formal partnerships, including with UN peacekeepers, if safety is threatened. Transfer guardianship of vulnerable sites to allied indigenous councils, ecological defense organizations, or neutral custodians until the threat passes. Peacekeeper Residency Program. Eunoia proposes a unique and hopeful partnership with the United Nations and other global humanitarian alliances, the Peacekeeper Residency Program. Rather than stationing peacekeepers in compounds, they are invited to live within Eunoia ecovillages with their families, becoming community protectors, trainers in emergency preparedness, partners in diplomacy and healing. This model humanizes protection by embedding peace within daily life, offers peacekeepers a true home and post-service transition support, builds trust and shared responsibility for safety between citizens and guardians. Peacekeepers are trained in nonviolent intervention, trauma awareness, and cultural humility, ensuring that the role of defense never overshadows the core values of community, ecology, and peace. Ecovillages as emergency refuge hubs. In a time of accelerating climate chaos and urban vulnerability, Eunoia ecovillages will serve as regional sanctuaries, offering shelter, resources, and care in times of crisis. Each ecovillage must be equipped with emergency housing space for up to 2 times its normal capacity, food, water, and medical reserves for 30 days, solar and satellite-based communication, triage and first aid systems, mobility plans for receiving and relocating displaced urban populations. These protocols are not theoretical. They are tested annually and practiced as part of steward training. Ecovillages thus become not only models of healing, but anchors of survival in a world growing more uncertain. Succession and continuity protections. Should Eunoia ever face internal collapse, corruption, or dissolution, its lands, programs, and leadership will not fall into chaos or opportunism. Instead, a continuity covenant ensures that all properties and programs are transferred to aligned organizations that meet Eunoia's ethical code. No assets may ever be claimed by private individuals, corporations, or political parties. Ongoing guardianship is offered to Indigenous-led councils, Earth-protecting trusts, or a United Nations-recognized planetary defense alliance. This clause prevents fragmentation and secures the mission beyond any single generation. A living pact with the Earth. What we build together is not simply a non-profit, a policy, or a project. It is a living pact between humanity, the Earth, and future generations. It requires not only vision, but vigilance, not only ideals, but infrastructure. Through these protections, Eunoia remains unbuyable, undivided, undestroyable in spirit. And as the world trembles under the weight of its own forgetting, Eunoia shall stand not in isolation, but as sanctuary. A sanctuary of purpose, a sanctuary of peace, a sanctuary of life.